I wake up before the bells ring. Not because of habit, not anymore. But because something pulls me from sleep, the way a mother might yank a child back from traffic. Sudden. Sharp. A whisper that isn't a sound, but a weight in the air. The sky above St. Valia is still dark when I step out. Fog curls along the ground like fingers trying to crawl up from the earth. The villagers never come near the old monastery. They say it's cursed. They aren't wrong. The Abbey of St. Petrikov stands alone on the hill, tall, broken, and silent. Ivy wraps around its cracked walls like veins. The stained glass windows have long since shattered, and the great wooden doors haven't creaked open for a sermon in over 100 years. But I enter every night, because beneath this crumbling church lies something deeper, something older, a prison, and I am its warden. I light my lantern before descending the stone staircase behind the altar. The path is narrow and steep, carved from rock blacker than pitch. Each step down makes the air colder, heavier, until it feels like I'm sinking underwater. The flame flickers with every breath I take, as if afraid. The scent hits first, burnt iron and salt, mixed with something foul and sweet, like rotting fruit left in a sunless room. I reach the first gate. A rusted wheel embedded in the wall groans as I turn it. The door opens with a wheeze like a dying man. Beyond it, the prison breathes. The corridor is dimly lit with red candles that never go out. The monks called them the eternal wards. Their flames dance, casting long shadows across the walls etched with Latin prayers. I check each door as I pass, thick iron slabs marked with holy sigils. Behind each one, something waits. They don't scream. That's the worst part. The demons here have no need for voices. They speak through silence, through thoughts that aren't yours, through memories that don't belong to you. That's why I always walk quickly. I don't give them time to settle in. But when I reach cell 9, I stop. Mata's door. The air is colder here. Not the kind that bites your skin, but one that creeps into your bones, into your blood, into your mind. The sigil above the door, the one carved deep into the stone by fire and prayer, is faint. I don't want to admit it, but it's fading. I stare at it longer than I should. My lantern dims slightly. I blink, and it returns to full light. A trick of the eye, I tell myself. Then I hear it. A voice. Whisper thin, like someone speaking through water. George? I freeze. The name echoes in my chest more than my ears. Mata, I whisper. You're bound. Silence. I take a step closer to the door. There's a narrow slit at eye level, sealed with reinforced glass. I peer through. Darkness. But something shifts. Not a figure, not quite. More like the shape that remains after you look away from a bright light. A lingering afterimage. You've come earlier than usual, the voice says, soft as breath. Couldn't sleep? I keep the schedule, I reply, gripping the edge of my lantern tighter. You know that. I know everything you do, George. You've been faithful, obedient, but lately you've been doubting. I say nothing. He chuckles. The sound feels like spider legs crawling along my spine. I can feel it. The questions. The ache in your hands. The way you stare at the exit a little longer each morning. I back away. I'm checking the seals, I say flatly. He hums. Yes, do check them. I turn and continue my rounds, but my heart won't slow. I check the other cells, 9 more tonight. Some empty. Some not. But I can't stop thinking about that sigil. About the whisper. About how it said my name. And as I walk, I glance down at the journal I carry. There's writing on the page. I didn't write it. You left the door open. My breath catches. I whirl around to look at Mata's cell again. The door is closed. Sealed. Locked. But the candle beside it has gone out. And the stone behind it is wet with something dark. Something that looks an awful lot like ink. Or blood. I don't fear the dark anymore. That's one of the first things you lose down here. After 10 years of walking these stone corridors under the church, you get used to it. The shadows, the stillness, the cold that clings to your skin like old silk. But last night, something about the dark felt different. It didn't just surround me, it watched. Every night at exactly 3 past midnight, I check the northern corridor. It's where the older cells are, where the air gets heavier and the torches burn weaker. One torch in particular, the one outside Mata's cell, has been a problem lately. 3 nights in a row it died. No wind, no draft, just snuffed out. Like something breathed it out. At first, I thought it was a simple fault. Maybe the wick was old or the oil tainted. So I replaced it. Twice. Last night, I stood there, watching the flame with my own eyes. It flickered normally at first, swaying gently with the stale air. Then it dimmed. Just a little. then a little more, then gone. No smoke, no sound, just sudden, thick darkness. I lit it again with my backup match, the kind I keep in a tin container around my neck. Flame caught easily. The moment it did, I noticed something strange. The stone behind the torch, it was wet. I ran my fingers along the wall. The moisture was dark, sticky, and cold. Not water. Thicker. It clung to my skin in threads like sap. I smelled my fingers. Blood. But it wasn't fresh. It smelled old. Rotten. Like it had been buried under centuries. I turned to the cell door. Mata's door. It looked the same as always, massive, rust-colored iron sealed with 3 holy symbols, a carved cross, a Latin ward, and a sigil older than Christianity. That last one always unsettled me. The lines never stayed still. If you stared too long, they seemed to shift, like they were breathing. I checked the latch. Still locked. The symbols still faintly glowed from the chalk and salt I reapplied just days ago. Then I heard it. A hum. Not loud. Not even clear. It was more like the vibration of a voice just below hearing. I couldn't make out any words, but I felt them in my chest. Like something was murmuring through the stone. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. I backed away. My breath felt sharp, like I'd swallowed ice. I turned, ready to walk away when I heard my name. George? It was a whisper. A voice so quiet it didn't echo. It sounded like it came from inside me. I spun around. No one there. Nothing behind me. Just flickering torchlight and that same cursed silence. I checked the cell again. The seals. The latch. The floor. Everything in place. Except the torch. The flame had gone out again. I didn't light it this time. I just stood there, staring at the wall. The blood. The whisper. The humming. It was nothing, I told myself. This place plays tricks. The mind hears what it fears. But even as I turned to walk away, I felt it. A presence. Like something standing just behind me, matching my footsteps, breathing when I breathed. And when I got back to my chamber and opened my journal, there was a new entry already written. In my handwriting. He's not locked in here with you, George. You're locked in here with him. I don't remember writing that. But the ink was fresh. Still wet. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was afraid. I've grown used to fear. It hangs over this place like the cold air itself. What kept me awake was something harder to explain. I kept hearing a song. Not with my ears. No, this was deeper. Like the way you remember a melody from a dream you can't place. Faint, hollow, humming low beneath the stone. I sat at my desk, in the tiny room that passed for my quarters. One wooden bed. One iron cross. A desk made from splintering oak. On it sat my journal where I recorded everything. Every flickering candle, every change in the walls, every whisper in the dark. I flipped through the last few entries. I had written something the night before, but I had no memory of doing it. He sang tonight. Not for me. For the walls. That's all it said. My handwriting. My pen. But not my memory. I stared at the words, hoping they'd make sense if I just looked long enough. They didn't. Instead, my gaze shifted to the corner of the page, where something was drawn in pencil. It was small. Almost like an afterthought. A spiral. Sharp edges. Angled inward like a coiled claw. I had seen it before. Mata's cell. I grabbed my lantern and the ring of rusted keys. The air in the halls was colder than usual. My breath fogged in the light. The candles lining the stone corridor flickered as if something moved past them, but I was alone. I reached Mata's door. Closed. Still sealed. But as I leaned closer, I felt warmth on the other side. Heat. A slow, steady pulse like something breathing against the iron. Mata, I said, barely more than a whisper. Nothing. And then a voice. Not words. Not even sound. But meaning. Pressed directly into my mind like a needle behind the eye. I know you're listening. I took a step back. My hand shook. I dropped the key ring. It clattered on the floor. Echoes bounced down the corridor, louder than they should have been. I don't need to speak to be heard, George. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth was dry, my throat closed. Then the voice again, soft but clear in my mind. You've always wanted the truth, haven't you? My vision blurred. Something in the air shimmered, like heat rising from stone. For a second I saw her, my sister, standing just behind the bars. Eyes wide. Lips sewn shut. I blinked, and she was gone. I stumbled back, gripping the wall, heart pounding like a war drum. I fumbled in my coat pocket for the small vial of blessed water I carried. I uncorked it and flicked a few drops toward the door. They hissed on contact. Steam rose from the iron. The faint smell of burning sulfur filled the air. The sigils on the door pulsed once, then dimmed. No, that wasn't supposed to happen. They were failing. The wards were weakening. I turned and ran. Not far, just back to my room. I needed answers. I needed to look again, to see if maybe I had missed something. When I opened my journal, a new page had been filled. A new entry. Not in my handwriting. Don't trust your memories. They were never yours to begin with. Below it, the spiral again. But this time it was moving, turning slowly on the page. Alive. I slammed the book shut. But even with my eyes closed, I could still feel it, pulling me inward. And somewhere deep below, behind that locked door, the demon was smiling. Without ever making a sound. I woke to the sound of silence. Not the comforting kind, the kind that wraps around your shoulders like a warm blanket, but the wrong kind. The kind that feels like a held breath, like the world itself is waiting for something to happen. I slept in the vestry, just above the prison. My cot was pushed against the old stone wall, and my journal rested on the wooden table beside me. Last night, I don't remember writing in it, but the ink was still wet. A sentence stared back at me. It's open, George. I didn't write that. I tell myself I didn't. I lit my lantern and made my way down the narrow spiral staircase into the catacombs. The air was colder than usual. My breath fogged up in front of my face. The stone beneath my feet felt damp, like something had been sweating beneath the earth all night. As I walked past the other cells, I did my usual checks. The first one, Yeel, the hunger demon, still snarled behind his grated door. The second, Raxa, who dreams in smoke, was silent as always. But as I neared the last corridor, where Mata was kept, my chest grew tight. His candle was out again. That damn candle. I relit it every night. Blessed the wick. Replaced the holder. Still it went out. But this time the door was open. At first, I thought it was a trick of the shadows. The hinges had never moved in years, rusted stiff with old salt and holy oil. But now it stood ajar, yawning like the mouth of something that had just swallowed. I raised the lantern with a shaky hand. Mata, I whispered. My voice sounded like it didn't belong to me. No answer. Just the faint drip of water from the ceiling. The inside of the cell was empty. The floor, once etched with binding circles and prayer lines, was smeared with black ash. The sigils on the walls were gone, burned away as if scrubbed by invisible fire. And yet, there were no signs of escape. No broken locks. No disturbed dust. Just absence. I stepped inside, against every instinct screaming not to. The air was thick. Not heavy with dust, but with something else. Regret. Like a room where something old had finally exhaled. I turned slowly, studying the walls. In the corner, where Mata used to sit cross-legged and still for days, something caught my eye. Scratched into the stone, faint but deep, were words. We do not leave. We are invited. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine like fingers dragging nails across my bones. Behind me, the door slammed shut. I spun around. Nothing there. Just the sound of the iron echoing through the hall, bouncing off the ancient stone. And then I heard it. A whisper. Not from the cell. From behind my ear. Welcome back, George. I stumbled out of the cell, breath shallow, heart pounding like a drum inside a crypt. The hallway looked longer than before. Narrower. The red glow of the eternal candles flickered, casting long, stretched shadows that didn't belong to anything real. I told myself it was just exhaustion. That maybe I had imagined the voice. The closed door. The writing. But deep down I knew better. Mata hadn't escaped in the way I expected. He hadn't broken chains or torn through the walls. He had done something worse. He had unhooked himself from the prison and fastened onto me. I took one last look at the cell door before leaving. It was closed again, sealed tight, as if it had never opened. But I had been inside. I saw the truth, and I knew he was still here. Not in the cell. In me. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment, I was sitting at the old wooden desk in the chapel chamber, reading from the Psalms. The next, I was standing in front of the sealed door that led to the lower chambers. Candlelight flickered against the stone walls, and my right hand was resting on the latch. I pulled it back quickly. My fingers were stiff, as if they had been gripping the handle for hours. A chill crept up my spine. The hallway beyond the door was cold. Not the usual underground dampness. This was the kind of cold that burns. My breath came out in a thin cloud. The flame in my lantern wavered. I should have gone back. I knew that, but I didn't. Some part of me, was already walking forward. The stone walls were wet. The deeper I went, the more the air tasted like metal. There were no footsteps, no whispers, just the sound of my own boots brushing against the ancient floor. I turned left at the sealed vault and followed the corridor that should have led to a dead end. Except it didn't. There was a door, small, wooden, rotting at the edges. I had never seen it before. And yet, I recognized it, not just the shape or the rusted iron handle, but the way that would split, the faint carvings etched into it. My initials. GI. I stared at it for what felt like hours before reaching out. The door opened without a sound. Inside was a room no bigger than a monk's cell. The walls were lined with shelves. Dust floated in the air like ash. But what stopped me cold was what sat in the center of the room, a table. And on it, drawings. Hundreds of them. Drawings I did not remember creating, but I knew they were mine. Childlike sketches. A boy with a shaved head. A man in robes. A red figure with twisted horns, always drawn in the corner, behind a cage of black lines. And then a picture of the underground prison, detailed and precise. In the corner of that drawing was a line of writing. The lies they tell become your memories. I stepped back, my knees trembling. My heart beat so fast it echoed in my ears. I picked up one of the papers and turned it over. More writing. You used to live here, George. Long before you became the warden. No, I whispered aloud. No, I didn't. My voice shook. My throat was dry. I was trying to convince myself. Then I saw it, hanging crookedly on the far wall. A mirror. I walked toward it, not really thinking. My reflection stared back, but something was wrong. The face was mine. The stubble. The tired eyes. But the robe, I was wearing the same robe as the priests from the old order. And my eyes, they were younger. Much younger. I reached out and touched the glass. And then the mirror spoke. Not with lips, but with my own voice. You buried the truth, George. But I remember. I was there when you screamed for them to stop. I was there when they locked the red one away. I was there when they carved the seal into you. I stumbled back. The drawings fluttered from the table, caught in some wind that shouldn't have existed. The door slammed shut behind me. I pounded on it. I screamed. But the sound was swallowed by the stone. And then, from the shadows, I heard Mada's voice. Soft. Calm. Too close. You forgot because it hurt, George. But pain doesn't forget. It just waits. I turned in a panic, holding my lantern like a weapon. But there was no one there. Only that voice, curling through the air like smoke. You were never the new warden, George. You were the first. Then silence. When I finally escaped the room, the hallway was gone. I stood once again in the main corridor, just outside Mada's empty cell. My journal was in my hands. The page was already open. The ink was fresh. Entry, tonight, I remembered the room. The mirror. The truth. But I still don't believe it. I can't. Because if I do, I'll never come back. I tore the page out. But the next morning it was back. Word for word. Same ink. Only now, my name was signed beneath it. In handwriting that wasn't mine. I woke up cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones. Makes you feel like you're buried underground. Except I was. The stone floor beneath me was damp. My flashlight lay beside my head, still on, casting a dull yellow glow against the walls. I was in the hallway outside Mada's cell again. But the door was shut this time. And locked. I scrambled to my feet, heart thudding like a war drum. My knees ached, my hands were shaking. I had no memory of walking here. The last thing I recalled was sitting in my quarters, writing in my journal about the candle that wouldn't stay lit. Now I was here. Again. I turned the handle to Mada's door just to be sure. It didn't budge. The sigils carved around the iron frame were glowing faintly red, as if still warm from some unseen fire. Mada, I whispered. No reply. Just the distant sound of water dripping somewhere deeper in the prison. I picked up my flashlight and made my way back to my room, feeling like I was being watched the whole time. The hallway behind me stretched longer than it should have. My steps echoed too long. Back in my quarters, I locked the door. Sat on the edge of the bed. Let my breathing calm. Then I reached for my journal. It was open, but not to the page I left it on. My hands froze above it as I stared at the handwriting. It was mine. Slanted, neat, almost hesitant. But I hadn't written this. You let me out, George. But you didn't want to remember. So I took the memory. And left the guilt. Fair trade, don't you think? I flipped the page. More writing. We've talked, you and I. More than once. You come to my cell every night now. Sometimes to scream. sometimes to listen. My blood ran cold. My mouth went dry. This wasn't a prank. No one else comes down here. No one even knows this place exists. And this wasn't a dream. The ink was still wet. I closed the book and threw it on the desk like it was burning me. Then I saw something else. The mirror on the far wall was fogged, even though there was no steam. Words were written into the condensation. I hadn't noticed them when I came in. Look behind you. I didn't want to. My hands gripped the edge of the bed. My neck stiffened. I forced myself to turn fast. Nothing. Just the door. Still shut. But the journal was open again. Flipped to a new page. This time, in deep black ink that almost looked like it had bled into the paper. You've already let me in. I grabbed the book and hurled it across the room. It hit the stone wall and dropped with a hollow thud. My breathing was ragged now. My skin slick with sweat. I dropped to my knees. Hands clasped together. God, please, I whispered, my voice trembling. Whatever this is, whatever I did, show me. Show me the truth. Let me fix it. But the only answer I got was a faint laugh. Not in my ears. In my head. And it sounded a lot like my own voice. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment I was scribbling verses into my journal, trying to drown out the voices with ink, and the next, I was standing in a hallway that shouldn't exist. It was narrow, the stone walls sweating like flesh, and it pulsed with a low hum. Not a sound, not exactly. More like a feeling crawling across my skin. Every few feet, candles flickered on their own, revealing cracks in the rock that looked like veins. This part of the prison wasn't on the map. I know the layout like the back of my hand. I have walked it in daylight, torchlight, and pitch-black fear. But I've never seen this corridor. It was like the Abbey itself was opening a new wound. I heard it then. Voices. Children's voices, high and soft, singing something that sounded like a lullaby twisted backward. Words I didn't understand, but somehow recognized. The melody coiled around my ears like smoke. I should have turned back. I should have run. But the voices reminded me of her. My sister. I walked forward. The corridor ended at a wooden door, rotted, swollen, and nailed shut with rusted spikes. The wood had deep scratches, like fingers clawing from the other side. But there was no lock. Just a symbol carved into the center, a circle of teeth. I pushed the door open. It screamed. The room beyond was round. Walls of stone, floor of ash, and in the center, rows and rows of bones. Human bones, arranged in a spiral like a choir. Dozens of skeletons, sitting upright in rotted robes, mouths open mid-song. And yet, no one moved. But the singing continued. The sound wasn't coming from them. It was coming from inside me. I stepped forward, heart pounding like a drum in a cave. The deeper I walked into the room, the louder the voices became, until I could make out one voice above the others. George. It was drawn out, like a thread pulled too far. I spun around. No one there. Then, the candles all snuffed out at once. Silence fell. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. I held my breath and waited, trying to blink shapes into the dark. And then I saw him. Not clearly. Mata never shows himself the same way twice. This time, he appeared as a shimmer in the air, like heat rising from the desert. His form flickered, no eyes, no mouth. Just a shape that didn't belong. He hovered just above the bones. You brought me to the choir, George, he said, his voice like wind through dead trees. Do you remember the song? No, I said, my voice shaking. But you do. You sang it once. You and your sister, in that room where she died. My hands clenched. Stop using her voice. I'm not using it. She gave it to me. And then I heard her. Clear as day. Her voice, soft and young, humming that same twisted lullaby from the hallway. My knees gave out, and I dropped onto the ash-covered floor. Tears blurred my vision. You're lying, I whispered. Was I lying about the priest? The memory behind the wall? Or the key under your tongue? He laughed then, a laugh that echoed not in the room, but inside my chest. I opened my mouth to shout at him, to curse him, to pray, but I tasted metal. Something sharp resting against my molars. I reached in with shaking fingers, and pulled out a small iron key. It had been inside me. God knows for how long. The shimmer of Mata leaned closer. One of 3 keys left, Warden, he said. You're doing so well. And just like that, he was gone. The candles flickered back to life. The bones remained silent. But the worst part was, the singing didn't stop. It had moved into me. And I knew in that moment that I had crossed into a part of the prison I wasn't meant to survive. I sat on the cold stone floor outside Mata's old cell, back pressed against the damp wall, my fingers trembling as they turned the pages of my journal. The candlelight flickered violently, as if reacting to something unseen. Maybe it wasn't the wind. Maybe it was the truth crawling up through the cracks. One page stood out. It wasn't in my handwriting. It read, "You will see 3 truths in 1 lie. Pick the lie, and I retreat. Choose wrong, and another door opens. Ready?" My breath caught in my throat. The ink shimmered faintly like blood drying under the moon. I looked around, but the hallway was empty. Still, I didn't feel alone. The air changed, turned thick, warm, and suffocating. The stones beneath me pulsed like a heartbeat. Then it began. The first memory struck me without warning. I was 16 again, kneeling in my bedroom, praying. My sister Eliza was outside the door, laughing. That laugh, pure, carefree, it didn't belong in this place. But there it was, echoing. I remembered this moment. I had just found out our dog had died, and I was trying to bargain with God, begging for a miracle. Eliza called me dramatic, teasing. But then she hugged me. She told me that faith isn't about trading, it's about trusting. That memory was real. The light dimmed. The second memory pulled me to a church pew, older now. 24. Studying theology, unsure of everything. There was a priest, Father Dacian, telling me that demons do not lie. They distort, he said. They drown you in truth until you forget how to breathe. I remembered the way he looked at me, like he knew something I didn't. Like I was already marked. That moment happened. I remembered the smell of wax and his bony hand on my shoulder. Then came the third. I was back in the basement of our family home. The night Eliza changed. Her eyes had turned dark, not fully black, but wrong. She spoke in a voice that didn't fit her throat. I had stood there, paralyzed, as Father Dacian and 2 others tried to cast it out. I remembered Eliza screaming my name. But this time, in the memory, I was the one holding the book. I was chanting. I was leading the ritual. No, that wasn't right. I never took part. I watched. I froze. I couldn't even move. My heart pounded as the 4th memory struck. It was back in the prison only weeks ago. I stood outside Mata's cell. I whispered something into the slit in the door. A phrase in Latin I don't remember learning. And Mata replied, not with words, with a sigh, like a breath from behind the wall of the world. And then the sigil cracked. I staggered back to the present, soaked in sweat, gripping my knees. The candle beside me had died. The journal page had changed. Which one is the lie, George? My voice felt distant in my own ears. The third, I whispered. I didn't lead the exorcism. That's the lie. Silence. For a moment, I felt the air lighten, as if a window had opened somewhere deep in the stone. A rush of relief. I had won. But then I heard the laugh. Not Eliza's. Mata's. Low, cruel, and full of pity. No, he said, though I couldn't see him. That one is true. You just never remembered. The walls began to groan. Dust fell from the ceiling. My ears popped like we were descending into a deeper level. I clutched the journal to my chest, heart racing. Another seal had broken. I could feel it. Another door had opened. You chose comfort, Mata whispered somewhere inside me. You always do. I stayed there in the dark for hours, maybe days. The prison had changed. The corridors felt longer. Some doors were missing. Others were new. And I couldn't tell anymore if my memories were mine or his. I was in the chapel when I first heard the cane tapping. A slow, patient rhythm, tap, 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 echoing across the cracked marble tiles like the beat of an old heart that had seen too much. At first, I thought it was part of Mata's illusion again. Another trick. Another lie. But the rhythm felt too steady, too human. When I turned, I saw him standing in the doorway. The man was dressed in black robes, old and threadbare, the kind you only see in yellowed photos of monks from a forgotten century. His skin was pale like ash, almost translucent. And where his eyes should have been, there was nothing. Hollow sockets. Just smooth skin, stretched tightly over his face, as if someone had wiped away the features with a damp cloth. Yet he spoke before I could even ask. You've gone too deep, George, he said. And you've stayed too long. I didn't answer. My throat was dry, tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I gripped the nearest pew to steady myself. I didn't call for anyone, I finally said. No, he replied. But the order sent me. The seal is weakening. And you, he paused, sniffing the air like a blind wolf. You're being hollowed from the inside. I didn't ask how he knew. Some part of me already believed him. The chapel lights flickered, even though there were no candles lit. Just that same strange reddish glow that now seemed to bleed from the stone itself. How do I know you're not another trick? I asked. The man moved closer, tapping his cane along the way, until he stood directly in front of me. His head tilted slightly, as if examining my face with invisible eyes. "You remember the night she died, don't you?" he asked softly. I went cold. "Don't," I warned. "You begged us to stop the ritual. You screamed. You said she was too far gone. But we couldn't stop. The demon was too close to breaking through." My breath caught. No one ever spoke of that night. Not even the order. Not even in whispers. "She was your sister, Amelia," he continued. "And her last words were not hers. They were mine. I whispered into her before she passed. A final seal to hold the gate closed." I stumbled back. "That's not possible." "It is," he said, "because the gate wasn't just beneath this church, George. It was inside her. It was passed to you. From blood to blood. That's why you hear Mata now. Why he chose you." I shook my head. My thoughts were spinning. Every memory twisted like barbed wire. Was he telling the truth? Or was this just another mask Mata wore? "You're saying I was born to guard this place?" I asked. "To suffer here forever?" The priest's lips tightened. "No. You were born to contain it. But your suffering, that part you chose." He turned and walked slowly toward the altar. With his cane, he traced a shape on the stone surface, an ancient sigil I recognized from the forbidden texts, the mark of living seals. The same one I'd seen in a dream, carved into my sister's spine the night she died. "You must make a decision, George," he said without turning back. "Stay and hold Mata here, or walk away and let the world bleed. But either way, the end is near." Then he was gone. No door opened. No sound followed. Just empty silence and the weight of the truth, or what felt like truth, pressing against my chest like an invisible fist. I stared at the mark on the altar. It shimmered faintly, like it was waiting for my touch. And behind me, in the hollow dark, Mata laughed. Not loud, not cruel, just a soft, knowing chuckle, like he had been listening the whole time. I woke up on the cold stone floor, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if it was night or day. Down here, time has no shape. No sun. No sound. Just the steady heartbeat of the earth above. My shirt was soaked in sweat. Or blood. I couldn't tell. My skin felt tight, burning in places I couldn't reach. I stumbled to my feet, the candles in the hallway flickering low. Their flames bent toward me like they were afraid. My hands trembled as I reached for the rusted mirror nailed to the wall near the eastern corridor, one I never looked at unless I had to. But this time I had to. There were marks on my chest. Not bruises. Not cuts. Symbols. Black lines curled into circles. Sharp shapes layered over each other, like script carved by shaking hands. I pulled off the rest of my shirt. My arms. My ribs. Even my neck. They were everywhere. And they were moving. Not fast, just enough that I wasn't sure if it was my own breathing, or something deeper, like the symbols were breathing too. I remembered the priest. The one with no eyes. His warning echoed inside me now. "You are the seal, George. Your body is the final gate." "No," I muttered. "No, I'm the warden. I keep the keys. I'm not the door. But the truth doesn't care what you believe." The sigils on my skin pulsed, glowing faint red for a moment, and then dimming again. I ran. I didn't know where, maybe to the chapel, maybe to the first floor. My legs moved on their own, dragging me through the twisted stone hallways. And then, Mata's voice. Not loud, not angry, but right behind my ear, like a whisper sliding along my spine. "You were always part of the prison, George. Your mother was one of the order. She was chosen to carry the last ward. You are not guarding this place." I turned, fists clenched, heart racing. "You are this place." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You were born beneath the altar. In salt and ash. They burned your name into the stone before they gave you breath. You never had a choice." I dropped to my knees. My head spun. My chest ached. Was it from the symbols? Or the weight of his words? "You're lying," I whispered. Mata stepped into the light. He didn't look like a monster. He never did. He looked like a man who knew too much. A calm face. Eyes that didn't blink. A smile that waited for something terrible. He walked past the line of salt I'd drawn days ago. It no longer mattered. "I am not here to break the prison," he said. "I am here to awaken it." He reached out, not to strike, but to touch the marks on my arm. And they responded. The symbols lit up beneath his fingers, like they recognized him. Like they remembered him. I couldn't move. My breath froze in my chest. "Now you understand why I didn't need to leave this place." Because once you see the truth, George, the seal begins to fade. It begins to open. I looked down. The symbols were no longer just marks. They were cracks. Cracks in me. Stop, I said, my voice breaking. Please. Mata kneeled beside me. He didn't gloat. He didn't laugh. I offered you freedom. You chose duty. And now, you must carry the truth. He stood. His figure blurred, like smoke taking shape. His voice drifted away. You are not the warden, George. You are the lock. And I have the key. Then he was gone. And I was alone. But not really. The symbols on my skin still pulsed. And somewhere deeper, beneath flesh and bone, I could feel something ancient stirring. Something inside me. The prison was opening. And I was the door. I don't remember walking to the chamber. I don't remember opening the old door carved with names of saints who never answered my prayers. But I'm here now. This room isn't made of stone. It's made of memory. The walls shift if I stare too long. One moment they're bricks. The next they're blackened wood. Then they pulse like skin. And the only thing that stays the same is him. Mata. He stands in the center, not bound, not hiding anymore. Just standing, like he's been waiting for me all along. His face is calm. Too calm. There's a strange glow behind him, like a candle flame trapped inside glass. But there are no candles here. Only a soft red light that breathes. Welcome home, he says. His voice is smooth, like the first lie you ever believe. The one that sounds too good to question. I'm not here for games, I say, but my voice cracks. You're not. Mata tilts his head. That's odd. You've played so many. I look down. My feet are bare. My robe is torn. My skin, it has the same symbols I saw on the stone walls, carved in gentle lines along my arms, my chest. I don't remember getting them. I don't remember anything anymore. You've kept me here long enough, Mata says, taking a slow step forward. But the truth is, you never really locked me in. You locked yourself. I shake my head. I didn't let you out. You tricked the seals. No, he says softly. You are the seal. My legs feel weak. I take a step back, but the room stretches. There's no door behind me. I don't remember it closing. You were born for this, George, Mata continues. Raised in this prison. Shaped by their guilt. Molded by their fear. You are the cage they built when they couldn't build walls strong enough. You're lying. Am I? His voice is gentle. Too gentle. Then why do you bleed scripture? I look at my hands. My fingertips, ink-stained. But it isn't ink. It's my blood. And the Latin. I recognize the verses. They're the binding chants. The same ones carved on the door to his cell. I've seen them 1,000 times. But never like this. I didn't choose this, I whisper. But now you can. Mata raises one hand. Behind him, a door appears. A real door. Wooden, cracked, glowing with something warm and golden behind it. And for a moment, I hear wind. Trees. A river. The world. Step through, he says. Forget all of this. Let the world take its chances. Maybe someone else will come. Maybe not. You'll be free. You'll remember your sister's smile. Your mother's voice. You'll taste food again. Feel sun again. He steps to the side, inviting me toward it. I take a step forward. And then I hear it. A voice. Soft. Breaking. From inside Mata. George. It's her. Elena. She's crying. You let him in, she says. But you can still choose. Please, don't let me be the last voice in this place. I fall to my knees. The floor is cold now. Real again. Stone. I press my palms to it, trying to ground myself. Trying to pray. But the words won't come. All I can do is cry. I don't want this, I say. I know, Mata answers. But that's why it has to be you. He kneels in front of me. Eyes calm. No malice. No anger. Seal me again. Keep me here. Bury this place beneath time. But know this, if you stay, you won't stay as George. You'll stay as memory. As echo. As silence that never leaves. Your soul will become the lock. And if I walk through? He smiles faintly. The world burns slower than you'd expect. I close my eyes. And I choose. I don't walk toward the door. I don't run. I just sit. Right there. And I speak her name. Elena. Her voice returns. Softer this time. Grateful. The room starts to dim. The red light pulls into my skin. The marks burn. The sigils glow. Mata nods, and for the first time, he looks tired. And then everything fades. Not into blackness, but into silence. A silence that speaks. A silence that remembers. A silence that guards. I don't know how long I've been down here. There's no sunlight, no ticking clock, no sense of hours passing. Just the endless dripping of rust-tainted water from the stones above, the low hum of air through dead hallways, and my own breath, quiet now. Hollow. Measured. The cell where Mata once stood is sealed again. The iron door is shut, colder than ice, pulsing faintly like it's alive. The sigils have changed. I didn't write them, but they're burned into the metal in a language I now understand, not with words, but with feeling. He's in me now. Not moving. Not whispering. Just waiting. Like a thought at the edge of memory that I can't quite reach. He didn't lie when he said I was the seal. Every chant I speak keeps him quiet. Every night I stay awake, he stays asleep. Every moment I hold on to myself, he stays trapped. This is my duty now. Not because anyone told me to. Not because I believe I'll be rewarded. But because if I don't do this, he'll walk in someone else's skin. Maybe yours. Maybe the next man who touches the wrong wall in the wrong church. Sometimes I remember my sister's laugh. It comes back to me when the air is still and the candles flicker low. Mata tried to twist that memory, tried to stain it, but I held it too tightly. I didn't let him in there. So maybe I won something. The journal you're reading, if you're reading it, was left by the door on purpose. I don't know your name. I don't know your reason for coming here. Maybe you're the next. Maybe you think this is all madness. Maybe it is. But this prison has always needed a man who stays behind. A man who listens. Who never forgets. If you hear something in the dark, footsteps, whispering, crying that sounds like someone you love, don't answer. Don't speak. And whatever you do, don't let it say your name.